In this video, I will review the setup for a multi-processor intersection using the XVII web user interface. One XVII processor can process the video for as many as 5 cameras. XVII does this by running a program for each camera called Camera I/O. If more than 5 cameras are specified to be installed at an intersection, a second XVII processor will be installed for the purpose of processing the video for the additional cameras. Configuring the setup for a multi-processor intersection is much like configuring the setup for a standard 4-camera intersection. There are just a couple of additional steps. The first thing to take note of when doing this is to identify the IP addresses of each XVII processor and camera to be installed at the intersection. Next, identify the IP address of the main processor that will be responsible for standard XVII operations, including running the XVII adaptive software and I/O connections with the traffic cabinet and controller. We will call this processor number 1. Second, identify the IP address of the video-only processor that will only be responsible for processing the video detection for the additional cameras. We will call this processor number 2. You'll notice in this example of IP address assignments that 3 camera processes are hosted on each machine. Although one processor can handle up to 5 cameras, it is best to evenly distribute the video image processing load between them in this way. Log into the XVII web UI hosted by the main processor. Select Configure Detectors from the Configure menu. Add the cameras that will be hosted on processor number 1 as you would for a standard intersection. Next, add the cameras that will be hosted on processor number 2 in the host machine field located in the table on the right-hand side. Draw detection zones, segment lines, presence points, and fog zones as you normally would. Click the Update intersection when done. Select the Views menu to return to the quad camera view. You should see all 6 cameras populated on the quad camera view. Notice that you can change the number of columns in the quad camera view to customize it to your liking. You can confirm that it configured your settings correctly by logging back into the Configure Detectors utility and checking that the IP address for processor number 2 is in the host machine field for each of the additional cameras. I have just reviewed the setup for a multi-processor intersection using the XVII web user interface.